Hello there, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art and Sunbeam FPP. Welcome to the channel today. I'm going to go through one of my easier foundation paper piece patterns that is available on my Etsy shop. This star can also be made with templates or rotary cutting. I like to use the foundation paper piece pattern method though, so that is what I'm going to show you today. First, let's pick out some fabrics. Now, the last time I made this star, I was not happy with the fabrics I chose. So this time I decided to make it just like my pattern shows with the bright colors. The quadrants of this star block do overlap. So what I like to do when I'm putting a piece together with another piece that is the same section, I'll cut a diagonal zigzag line or a serpentine type curvy line, and my program EQ8 puts a little line on the pattern for me so I can match it up. When I put the two pieces of paper together, I'll be able to match up that single line that's going through the pattern and put a little piece of tape on there, and I'll have my section ready to go. The next step is to cut into my fabrics that I've chosen. All the quadrants of this star are exactly the same shapes. So what I did was I stacked up my blue, green, yellow, and pink fabrics, wrong side up. I did a little folding of one of the quadrants so I could get exactly the size that I needed for the larger triangle. Then I refolded it so I could get exactly the size I needed for the smaller triangle. Next, I used up some white fabric scraps and did a little bit of folding to get my larger white triangle and then my smaller white triangle. I needed 4 of each of those. All those pieces are being cut with enough extra for seam allowance. Now that I've got everything cut, it's time to sit down at the sewing machine, and I am going to stitch pieces 1 and 2 together first. Once I get each section completed, it's going to be pretty easy to put the block together. I did cut away extra paper from these individual sections. It's a lot easier to figure out where your fabric is supposed to go if you don't have all that extra paper in the way. Starting with my first section, I need one of the larger white triangles and one of the smaller colored triangles. I'm going to place those right sides together, and then on the back side of the paper, those will be placed so they are overlapping my stitch line. If you've got a bright light handy, you should be able to see through your pattern paper and see that your fabric is overlapping. I'm going to stitch on that seam line with a 1.3 stitch length. I'm going to go ahead and chain piece all 4 sections so that I've got that assembly line chain piecing mentality. It's a lot easier to do things this way when you're doing the exact same thing 4 times in a row. There's less chance for error that way. I do double check my triangles each time just to make sure they are covering up the individual piece in that section and have enough room for seam allowance on all the sides. Once I get the fourth section pieced, I'm going to separate that chain. I'm going to trim away any excess thread. I'm going to fold the paper back on the line I just stitched, trim away any excess bulk from that seam, and then I'm going to press those fabrics flat. Now it's time to add piece number 3 to all 4 of these sections, and piece number 3 is the larger white triangle. So again, I'm going to put that right sides on the back, make sure I have enough overhang so I will have some seam allowance there, and then I will stitch that seam. I'll do the same thing with the other 3 sections. Then when I'm finished, I will trim away the bulk, trim away any excess thread, and press those seams open. With those all pressed open, it's time to add that larger color triangle to each section. With the fabric wrong side up, I verify that it is going to actually cover the piece. Then I place it right sides together with the back of the section. Make sure I have enough overhang for seam allowance. Stitch my seam. Then I'm going to go ahead and piece all 4 sections. I'll trim away that excess bulk from the seams, and then I will press all these seams open. Now it is time to trim these sections. What I'll be doing is putting my ruler on the stitch line at 1/4 of an inch. And then when I cut, it will be cutting on the dotted line, which is the seam allowance. I'm saving any cutoffs that are more than an inch wide for my scrap bin. Once all 4 pieces are together, I'm going to lay them out face up, right side up, just like my pattern shows, and then I'll be able to stitch 2 triangles together and then the other 2 triangles together, and then I'll put both halves of this block together. There's no matching in this block, so they are such large pieces, I thought I'd go ahead and remove the paper very gently before I stitch the block together. I took my first 2 triangles and stitched those right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam. Then I stitched the second pair together with a 1/4 inch seam. Next, I just had to put the 2 pairs together to make a square block. I didn't do this, but next time I will, and that is to press each of those seams opposite ways so that the nesting of that center seam will go a little more smoothly. With that last seam stitched, I pressed my block nice and flat. This pattern is supposed to create a finished block of 12 inches, so I'm going to be trimming my square here to 12.5 inches. To get it lined up, I'm going to be using the diagonal line on my ruler and the 6¼ inch mark on my ruler. Using those 2 tricks, I'll be able to trim this block to 12.5 inches, which is the size of the ruler that I'm using. I hope you'll leave a comment and let me know how you would make this block. What colors would you use? And I would also be grateful for any likes and subscribes, as that will help grow this foundation paper piecing channel. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back again real soon.